What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be predicting the outcome of Vergil Ortiz Jr. versus Michael McKinson, and this is going to be a 12-rounder in the welterweight division, and this fight is going to be Saturday, August 6th from Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, and this fight is going to be broadcasted on DAZN. And to get both fighters' resumes, Vergil Ortiz Jr., fighting out of the United States, holds an outstanding record of 18 wins, with no defeats in all 18 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently ranked number 4 by BoxRec, which I think is a little bit too high, considering he hasn't got that trademark win yet over a top 10 opponent, but he's still a very, very good fighter with some solid wins, as he has defeated Antonio Orozco by knockout, Brad Solomon by knockout, Samuel Vargas by knockout. He's defeated former world champion Maurice Hooker by knockout, and in his most recent victory, he was able to knock out a former world title challenger Egidijus Kavliauskas. But as for his opponent, Michael McKinson, fighting out of England, holds a record of 22 wins with no defeats. And get this, he only has 2 wins coming by way of knockout, and that's relatively unheard of for a fighter with over 20 wins to have 2 wins by knockout. Yes, in women's boxing, maybe it's heard of considering they only have 2-minute rounds, but McKinson is fighting full 3-minute rounds, and he only has 2 knockouts, and that just really shows how much of a feather-fisted fighter he is, and really his style also connects with why he has almost no knockouts. He's a boxer and a very, very boring fighter. I know there's some boxers who are entertaining. He's a very, very boring boxer who's not really a crowd pleaser. But he is ranked number 12 by BoxRec, which I think is astronomically high for, considering that BoxRec has a very tough rating system when it comes to the welterweight division. Considering there's so many great talents in the welterweight division inside the top 25, there's very good fighters. It's just crazy how McKinson hasn't really got a win over an opponent who's really recognized by, almost every single ranking system inside the top 35, and that he's ranked number 12. It's just crazy because there's so many opponents I could list that should be higher than McKinson or that McKinson should be lower than. For example, someone like a Josecito Lopez, someone like a Kudratio Abdukakrov, someone like a Jamal James, maybe even a Radzab Butayev if they have Butayev lower than McKinson. All those guys are better than McKinson, and McKinson is ranked higher than them, and McKinson has almost no wins over credible opponents, and those guys have fought some of the best guys, have lost even to some of the best guys in tough fights, and have beaten some very solid competition, and McKinson has done none of that, plus he has no knockouts, to his credit. But, to list some of McKinson's best victories, he's defeated Chris Congo by unanimous decision, which is probably his best win, which is really just a British regional sort of level type of fight. He's also defeated or I don't know how to pronounce his name really, but it's Przemysław Runakowski. He's from Poland. He defeated him by wide unanimous decision on a DAZN card. And in his most recent fight, McKinson defeated Alex Martin by unanimous decision. So in my opinion, this fight is super easy to predict. I think Vergil Ortiz Jr. is just a much better fighter than Michael McKinson, and I think that he's going to get a knockout win. Just to break this fight down round by round, Vergil Ortiz Jr. I think will come forward a lot throughout this fight, and I think he will stop Michael McKinson. And just to give like a range of where I think he's going to stop him, I think anywhere from rounds 4 to rounds 8, we could see McKinson out of there. Honestly, I think it could be a standing stoppage, could be a brutal knockout for Vergil Ortiz Jr., or it could be multiple knockdowns, which leads the referee to stop the fight to obviously get a knockout win for Vergil Ortiz Jr. I think anywhere of those ways could be obviously a win for Vergil Ortiz Jr. Obviously, I know it's all the ways that Ortiz could get a knockout in this fight, but I think those are all possible because McKinson, he hasn't really dealt with that type of pressure fighting ever in his life. He's never fought anyone like Vergil Ortiz Jr., especially someone with that power, with that pressure fighting. He's just not used to it. Considering he only has 2 knockouts, he shouldn't, I don't think he'll be able to keep Vergil Ortiz off him with his jab or with his shots. And the thing with McKinson, he's a primarily run and jab fighter. He dances around the ring, runs, jabs, lands a 1-2. Not really that exciting. So I just think that Vergil Ortiz Jr. will chase him down, walk him down, drop him maybe multiple times, stop him standing, knock him out brutally, whatever. It just will be a knockout win for Vergil Ortiz Jr., and he will definitely come out still undefeated with that 100% knockout ratio. So comment down below your thoughts on this fight. Who you think is going to win? I think it's pretty easy to say that Vergil Ortiz Jr. is going to get a knockout. But I think that just to break this fight down round by round, like who's going to win the rounds, I think the only round that McKinson could have a chance of winning is maybe the first round. That could be a feel-out round where Vergil Ortiz Jr. just walks McKinson down and figures out where he could throw his shots. But I think McKinson could land some jabs on the outside, some right hands, whatever. He might just edge the round based off of just activity. But I think in rounds 2 and 3, Vergil Ortiz Jr. will step up the pace, start to really walk down McKinson heavily, get him to the ropes, land big combinations, and really just start to hurt him. And then in round 4, I think that's where Ortiz Jr. could really stop McKinson. That's right where the start of the rounds, where I think he could stop McKinson anywhere from rounds 4 to rounds 8. He could just stop McKinson, hurt him bad, walk him down, stop him against the rope standing, drop him multiple times throughout those rounds, and then stop him. I mean, just could be a brutal knockout, as I mentioned many times here. I mean, really, Vergil Ortiz Jr. is just going to dominate in this fight. And I think that if McKinson survives like rounds 4 and 5, I think after 6, it could be 59-55 in favor of Vergil Ortiz Jr. And he could survive up until round 8, I think. But otherwise, I think after that, it's becoming a little bit of a stretch, considering McKinson hasn't dealt with that sort of pressure fighting and power that Vergil Ortiz Jr. has. I don't think he will be able to last too long. So, like I said before, I think Vergil Ortiz Jr. will get a knockout victory over Michael McKinson from rounds 4 to rounds 8. So, like I said before, comment down below your prediction for this fight, who you think is going to win, and what is next for both fighters. So, overall, I believe that Vergil Ortiz Jr. will defeat Michael McKinson by knockout, and I think that the stoppage will happen from rounds 4 to rounds 8, leading to Vergil Ortiz Jr. getting his 19th victory, 19th by knockout. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.